Hello everyone, welcome to use local variable type inference including lambda parameters. Local variable type inference introduced in Java 10, and the purpose of them is to infer data type at compile time. We can only use them in the constructor, method, or initializer block. So let's see. Benefits. A var is a keyword and is used as a local variable with initial value in constructor, method, initializer, block, loops, non-denotable type. All right. So I have created a project var type inference, and I have a main class. Let's create one initializer, one constructor, and we have a method. I'm going to make a local variable double num 1.0. The main have string name equals to main, and int size equals to 7. So I have created 3 local variables at 3 different places: initializer block, constructor, and in the method. Now, after Java 10, instead of typing a data type, we can write var keyword. What var does, var check the value, so 1.0 is a floating value, and make the type of the variable to double. And same here, make the type string, and here make the type of size int. Where else we can use? So we can use them in loops. So I am changing the int into var. What about for each loop? Yes, we can use them in the for each loop as well. If I have like string arg and arguments. So string is an array, and args is an array of a string. So now this is string I can change into var. Okay. If I do arg dot, so all the methods which I can call through the string object, I can do the same. So we can only use them inside a method, constructor, and initializer block. Next, what about these non-denotable types? So non-denotable types are anonymous class and intersection types. I will cover this one in the lambda section. Next benefit is the value of a var can change but type cannot change. Same like as any variable. Like here the size is 7, right? I can change the value of a size to number 4. because the type of a size has assigned to int. What about if I would like to change, I put the different value like 5? No, compiler will not allow me to do this one, won't compile, because string cannot go into integer. All right. Okay. So, yeah. So you can use this one in var loops as well. We have seen we have used them in the for loop, for each loop. So you can use in inside the loop and do while loop and while loop. Okay. Next, what we cannot do. A var cannot declare without an initial value. It is always initialized on the same line or statement where it is declared. So let's do this one. All these can do points, I will, for clarity, type a can do and number 1 here. So I'm going to create a variable named question and try to assign a value on the next line. So compiler is not allowing me to do that. Same thing. If I have an if statement, for if statement you need to pass some Boolean expression. So I would say size equals to 4. Size, we have defined the size up here as integer. So answer, put the answer value 2 and else answer equals to 3. So you can see that. So we cannot do this one in the var that declare in one line and initialize in one line. However, if it would be int, so can we do it? Yes, we can do it with primitive types or any other object. We can do it, but not with a var. Okay. This one is seems to me a little silly. If I say var silly, and in the next line, declare in first line and initialize in the second line. So this one allows me to compile. The reason why this code comprises on 2 lines, however, it is one statement. The Java statements always end with semicolon. So it's considered as a one statement, and the next line will not be any kind of obstruction. So it is perfectly valid. Next, a var cannot initialize with null value without a type. So what it means? Let's see. It's about, this one was about the same line, and it is about the null values. So if I say var n equals to null, so you cannot assign null to var because compilers say what is the type of this variable. However, if I specify a type before the null, the compiler will allow me um, to 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 initialize the O variable as null because the type is of O is string now. This is a string, O is a string and a type, and the value is null. Next is if I have one variable, can I assign a already declared variable null value? Let's see. If I have n equals to my string, what about if I want to put n equals to null? Yes, compiler will allow me to do that. So I have created here m, which is the integer value. And now, what about if m is integer and try to put null inside? Compiler will definitely not allow me to do that. The reason why m is a type of integer. So you cannot change the type once it has assigned. All right, so this is very important. Okay. Next, a var is not permitted in multiple variable declaration. Okay, so compound declaration. For instance, if I like to type var a equals to 2 and b equals to 3. So I'm try to assign 2 into a variable and 3 into the b variable. It's not possible compound declaration with a var. You could do with int, but you cannot do with a var. Right? What about mixed declaration? Like if I have int a, yes, I can do this. What about it? This is a local variable, is not assigned. So if I would like to use this local variable in a code in this method, so I have to initialize it. And what about if I put here var b equals to 3? So compiler will not allow me to declare any variable in a mixed declaration. Okay. Next is var cannot be used to initialize an array. Let's see an array. Okay, if I have a integer of double of prices equals to 9.95, 8.86, which is perfectly fine with a double. And if I would like to change this one into the var, no, compiler will not allow me to do that. Next, a var cannot be used in parameters, return types, and field. For this, I will make a new class var keyword. And I will create a string name, and I'm going to initialize here. And I will make a constructor, generate constructor, use field, and also I am trying to make getters and setters method for name, which this is a perfect Java bean. So what about if I change the field type to var? Compiler will not allow me to do that. What about if I change the parameter of constructor? Compiler will not allow me to do that. Same thing with the method. And if I would like to change the return type to var, compiler will not let me do that. So you can see that we cannot use a var on the field levels, method parameter levels, and return type. Here, let's say var won't allow me to do that. So any type of a field. What about I have static fields, static counter int counter equals to 0. So if I change this one into var, no, I cannot do that. So it's only inside the method, constructor, and initializers, nothing outside. Next is var is a reserved type, not a reserved word. It means that it can be used as an identifier, except as a class, interface, or enum name. Let me explain this one. So I'm going to make a new Java class. Name starts with capital V, var, and it is in a var package. You know that we can use the var in the package as well. Okay, then I'm trying to create two methods: public void var. Can I make a method with a var? Yes. What about public void capital var? Yes. So this one is not a constructor. The reason why it has a return type. Make sure whenever these type of questions come in exam, and if they have a return type, do not mark them as a constructor. So now I am going to create a variable var, and I'm assigning a string var. Is it allowed? Yes. It's very bad programming practice, but we can still use var as a variable name. So this is a variable name, and it looks the values on the right hand side, which is a string. So var is a string. Now, what about creating a object name with a var? So class name is var, object name is a var, equals to new var. We do that. Yes, perfectly fine. We could do that. So where we cannot use var with the class name. We cannot use var with the interface name, and we cannot use var with enum. All right. Rest we can make a method. We can use as a variable. We can make any object. All right. Okay. Let's. These are the guidelines which comes from JEPs. So what the guideline says, these are 7 guidelines. Choose a variable name that provides useful information. So for that, I have a list of strings, and I'm storing these list of strings in the result variable. If I change this list of string into var, this, change into var, and let's give the name result1. So this result1 doesn't give me a useful information. What is this actually? This is strings of list. Yes. So make sure the variable name must give a useful information. Number 2, minimize the scope of local variable. Okay. For this example, the guideline number 2, I have a list of strings, and later on there are the 100 lines of code, and I write a lot of the codes, what need to put it in, and there is a one object I would like to add in the last, make some kind of a if a statement that this must be processed last, right? And then print these objects. In the middle of a program, I decided to change this array list into hash set. Okay. So here is now a hash set, and hash set must also have add method. The difference between array list and hash set: array list is in order and hash sets are not in order. And the bug has created, there are 100 lines of the code, and you cannot take the bug out because of a var. Because earlier, if you would do that, so the programmer can get a little bit clue by changing this one from the list to the set. Now this one will not pop up because there is a var over here. So the best practice would be the scope of a var should be less. So wherever you use a var, make sure the scope should be less, not a lot of lines. So in a method with a 2 or 3 to 1 page length code, so you can easily find it out where if the problem arises by switching these objects. So it is very important. Next is consider var when initializer provide sufficient information. Right. So here we have the 3 objects: output stream, readers, and list. You can see that the right hand side provides sufficient information. So if you change these class name into var, then the code looks clean, and you can easily figure out that what is going on, and readability is pretty obvious. So we can consider var here because the initializer on the right hand side provides sufficient information. Next, consider var to split chained or nested expressions. So introduction of Java number 8, we can use the string programming. What is doing here actually? It is a list of strings, and then we are grouping them, and then we are using one string into another string. So there's a lot of line of a code. For readability, I extract this one out, right click, format, introduce variable. All right. Okay. Okay. So now we can see that this will return a map, and this one return the maximum value in the optional. So you can change this one into var and change this one into var. In IntelliJ, the gray section, it mentioned what the type of var would be. So this one provides a great readability. So you can use the var over here. Okay, next. Don't worry too much programming to interface with a local variable. Guideline number 5. So this is a normal jargon of programming language. Object on the right hand side and interface on the left hand side. So list is implemented by many other classes. So this is a polymorphism. You can assign one object, you can assign another object which class implemented the interface. So we have the class, we know that copy on right array list. Yes, we can do it over here. And again, list equals to new, very famous linked list. Okay. All right, so it was perfectly fine in the traditional code. But what about if you change this one with var? Let's say list one. So on the left hand side, the type would be array list. The type will not be HIL interface. And if you like to assign the other objects to list one, which is the type array list, it will give you an error. All right. So you cannot use with a var that changing the object. So there is no interface on the left hand side. With var, the var actually get the type of whatsoever on the right hand side. Okay. Next, take care using var with diamond or generic methods. Okay. Guideline number 6. So with the Java number 7, you do not need to write in on the right hand side angular bracket the type if it is mentioned on the left hand side. What would be the type on the right hand side if I change this one into var? Is it be the string, or is it be an object? So it will be an object. What would if I would like to mention this one to string? If I would like to mention here string, on the left hand side I have to specify string on the right hand side. Now it is array list of a string. Okay. All right. You can also use an argument to the constructor to infer properly. Like I have a var list 3 and new array list, and if I'm gonna put it over here list, so you can put the list of a string, list of in the side the array list constructor, and it will create from the former list to the new list. So now the type on the left hand side would be string. So you can do like that as well. This is very important to mention on the right hand side what the type of variable would be. So right now the type of variable is list 3 is string in the last line. However, in the line number 10 it is object because we have not mentioned anything. Next, take care var with literals. Okay. So there is no issue with Boolean, character, long, string, and floating points. If you change these one into var, so the compiler will assign them their own type. So from the true, it will assign Boolean. From character, it will assign a char type. With L, it will assign long type. With string, it will assign string type. And with F, it assigns float. And without F, floating point, it assigns double. If I take the F out here, okay. I would like to say if it is a float. Right. If I take the F out from here, so the compiler will give an error that you cannot assign a double value into floating. So any decimal by default is double. So that's why I put it over here, F. Okay, so there is no problem. However, but if you change byte, short, long into var, so the whole number compiler refer as a integer. Okay, like if you do here var then compiler will assign integer. It cannot assign byte, short, and long. These are the values we can assign them into the 0 assign can be byte, and this one value into short, and the long, the hexadecimal value. So These are all integers, so by default uh, any number is int, so compiler will assign to integer. So make sure about this one. If you really want this one to be a byte, so you have to cast it. You have to specify, as I said earlier, on the right hand side what is the type is. So now it is a byte. And for short, you have to write down short here, and long put L over here, or long. So make sure about this one. Okay, and that's it. All right. Next, lambda expressions. Uh, Lambda expressions, what is all about? We are assigning a function into a variable. So lambda expressions, they can also be implicitly typed with the var syntax. So if you can see that var num, we can do it. And let's do it through our class lambda expression. All right. Okay. So what the lambda expression is, as I said, you are assigning a function into a variable. So now this one is function integer f equals to um, var num. Okay. So you can use the var with the lambda parameter, but not with the method parameters. Lambda parameter you can do it. What about on the left hand side? Can you use the var on the left hand side? Let's see. Just make F1. Change this one to var. So the compiler doesn't know what is coming through the right hand side. So that's why the compiler gives you an error. So you cannot assign lambda to a var unless, as you did with the null, you specify a type on the right hand side. So now you can see that it is not much beneficial to use a var keyword, because you have to type it, cast into a type which you want it. All right. Next is a var can be used with annotations. So annotations define a set of rules. Um, let's say by function. All right. Integer, integer, and string. All right. So this is a function has two inputs, and output is a string. So here, as you know, we can use var here. We can use var here. What about the annotations? Yes. What I can make annotation not null. So it's not here. So let's create. Uh, create annotation. Okay. Okay. So now, yeah, we can use an annotation as well with the lambda parameter. Okay. Next is var can be used for non-denotable types. Anonymous class. on the right hand side, which is inherited from object. It is adding two variables, uh, string and integer, counting the total numbers of an apple. Okay. So I would like to use a name and the total number, but I couldn't do earlier. With the introduction of var keyword, I can use the inner variables outside the anonymous class. Let's compile this one and see what would happen. Yes, I could use it. All right. Next is intersection type. So what are the intersection types? So intersection types are actually a product of two types. So here you can see that input in the function, we have one input and output. Input is integer. Whatever we are putting inside is adding one and returning. Plus, this is also serializable. I would like to store this function in the lambda parameters, so I couldn't do that. Earlier, how could the people achieve it? They split into two, like split into serializable and function. Let's say this one F, let's say this one S, and then they couldn't use like that, right? With the introduction of var keyword, we can now assign a variable a intersection types, either or. We no need to do like this one, split into twos, which we used to do earlier. Okay, so there is a benefit for the var keyword. The code has more power. Okay, and next, you cannot mix var and non-var parameters. You cannot mix var and explicit type parameters. You cannot omit parentheses for single var parameter. So the first one example, we are mixing the var with non-var parameter. So what we need to do, we change this one into var, or either we can change var into integer or whatsoever the type we want. So we cannot use only few vars in our parameter. If one is var, all should be var. Same thing in below. So one is var, all should be var, or no var. Okay. This one has all var, which is good. Next is, so var and explicit type. So we can use the explicit type. Earlier also, we cannot use intx without anything and then goodbye. So once we mention the type, we have to mention for everything. So here also, so once var is going to be var or without anything. Earlier also, whenever we use a single variable, like intw, it should be in parentheses. If we omit the int, so we don't need the parentheses. So same thing over here with a var as well. All right. So okay, do some good practice. and write down the comments below. And have a question, please ask. I hope all this knowledge cover your var section, which will be intensively used in OCP 11 program. Thank you.